The Women of Ill Repute, with your hosts, Wendy Mesley and Maureen Holloway.
All right, we're going to let you in on a little intel today. This is absolutely true. A while back, the Amazing Race Canada put out a casting call for their latest season, and I got this bee in my bonnet, and I suggested, actually, I think I tried to persuade Wendy that we audition.
Yeah, the persuasion didn't go too far. I said no, and I blamed it, I think at the time, which was partially true. I blamed it on, could I take my special pillow? I couldn't do it because I couldn't take my special pillow.
Well, that speaks volumes. But also, I still maintain that we would have been picked because, you know.
Well, of course.
Because look at us. But also highly competitive. But you're the one that races down ski hills and goes windsurfing and all that. You could do all the physical stuff. I'm more of a cocktails on the dock, everybody. I think we would have been contenders, but there were more reasons not to do it, even though.
Well, that's the other reason. There were no cocktails involved. So no special pillow, no cocktails. But you know what? I think they actually want more than I could give them. So I think they want people who have watched the show from childbirth on, and they want people to be enthusiastic. And I don't think we would have won.
Well, we didn't try out. It's all about it. Well, our guest this week is someone who does have what it takes to win one of the most intense and popular reality show competitions ever. Erika Casupanan, I would see if I pronounced that correctly, is the survivor. She's the sole survivor of Survivor Season 41, which took place right at the tail end of the pandemic in Fiji. She's the first Canadian. She's the first person of Filipino descent. She's the first LGBTQ contestant of color. She's an all-around winner on all sorts of levels.
Yeah, and she's from Niagara Falls,
right.
Hello. They gave her the key to the city. And before that, she was at Media Profile. I know lots of people. They go way, way back. She was a communications manager there. And she gave that job up to compete on Survivor. And she kind of won. She won.
She didn't kind of won. She won.
Yeah.
And how did she do it? Well, she's smart. She's athletic. She's determined, all those things. But Erika said that she's often underestimated. And she works that in her favor. Remember now, you may not know this, Wendy. The goals of Survivor are to outwit, outplay, and outlast.
Yeah, so maybe I should reconsider. Anyway, I do want to know some of the details of competing from Erika. I want to know about hygiene challenges. And I want to know, we're not supposed to mention this, I don't think. There were camera crews there.
Well,
right?
yes, of course there were camera crews.
So that's how you see it. So now I got it. So anyway, where do they hang out? But my big question is, can anyone compete with a special pillow?
Oh, I don't think so. But here to answer those questions and more, the remarkable Erika. Am I pronouncing your last name properly?
Hi, I say it Casupanan.
Then it is Casupanan.
Yes.
All right. Then welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. I am happy to be here. And I feel like I have some bad news about that special pillow to share.
Uh-oh. I couldn't take it?
Oh, you would not be, rather, people are shocked when I tell them you literally get nothing. You get your machete, you get your pot, you find things in the woods to make shelter, but you really get nothing.
And what about going to the bathroom?
Okay, so that's the question I got the most. So there's two questions. I figure I should just address them from the top that people would ask me the most. So number one is, what happens when you want to go to the bathroom? So for number one, you can kind of just go anywhere. Usually the tribe decides this is the spot where we're going to go to the bathroom. But then for number two, they recommend that you go in the ocean and do something called an aqua dump. And I know that sounds gross, but it's probably the cleanest way to go because at least you're in the ocean. Your toilet paper is wet sand. But then when it's nighttime and it's so dark, you're not allowed to go into the ocean. And that's when you have to dig a hole and use leaves. And you don't want to do that. Leaves are not absorbent. You do not want to do that. So you should go in the ocean during the daytime.
I love this is all the stuff I've always wanted to know. So you're basically you're in a bathing suit all the time, right? And if you strategically place scarves depending on your tribe and what have you, are you given more than one of those? When you say literally nothing, what's your wardrobe?
Well, you do get some clothes, and I wish that I had a bathing suit, but then a few years ago they took away bathing suits, so it's truly just your bra and your underwear. So you do get like a few sets of clothes that you can wear, like something that is better for doing challenges, and then you get something that you can wear at camp. And then if you're into fashion, you can mix and match and get creative, but you do get some clothes. Yeah, it's not Naked and Afraid. That's not a show I'm not going to do.
No. Wow.
So I want to know, when you were pooping in the ocean, were the camera crews there? I mean, we never see the real stuff, right?
Well, if you're going to the bathroom, you can't have a camera crew follow you, obviously. So there are rules about how you can only go to the bathroom by yourself, because they don't want you strategizing as you're going number 2, and the camera crews can't capture it. But then there's often code words that people use. So if you are going to the bathroom and going to number 2 or something, you usually say that you're going to the coconut tree, and that's just so it doesn't ruin any of the footage for the viewers. So now if you go back and you watch any old seasons and you hear someone talking about the coconut tree, they're not talking about a tree. They're talking about something else.
So how... So the crew's with you all the time, right? At night, the whole bit, and yet they have the hands off. And there have been many incidences throughout the seasons of Survival where there has had to be interventions, and we hear about it usually later. But how hands off are they really? I mean, do you have any interaction with them?
I mean, it's still a produced TV show, so you'll have a producer there telling you, like, okay, it's time to get ready and go to the challenge. But when you're just living at camp, it's truly just camera crew teams following you around, and you get really used to them being there. Like, it's really weird. You get used to them being there, but they're not supposed to talk to you. So for me, it was such a weird moment, because after I had won the show and they announced I was the winner, and then we filmed the reunion on the spot, which is something they had never done before, then all of a sudden it became like this party on the tribal council set, and all of these camera crew people who I had seen for the last month, who I wasn't allowed to talk to, who never talked to me, so I didn't know what their voices sound like, all of a sudden they're coming up and talking to me, and they know all this stuff about me because they had been watching me for the last month. And I'm like, this is the weirdest thing ever, because I forget that we're people and we can talk to each other.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so what was your... And Wendy's she's not as familiar with Survivor as I am, which is why I'm probably cornering conversation here. So out of all the challenges that you faced, and some of you sat out and some of them you won, obviously you won the biggest, what were the ones that were the most daunting for you, the most challenging?
Ooh, there was one that I thought we weren't going to finish. It was so tough. So it was one that was later in the season. It was a reward challenge where there were 6 people left, but they put us onto 2 teams of 3 randomly. And it was like a water challenge where you're supposed to it's kind of like a basketball element where someone is shooting a ball into the net, and then the other 2 people are in the water catching the ball and then throwing it back to the person in case they don't get it into the net. So it's lots of swimming. And at that point, we are so deprived. We hadn't eaten all day. The description of the challenge they gave us in the tree mail did not sound like it was going to be a water challenge. So I remember we were doing that challenge for what felt like a really long time, and no one was getting close to getting their ball into the net. And I'm thinking, there's no way we're ever going to finish this. But eventually my team ended up winning. I think one guy threw the ball towards the net, and then me and the other guy who were in the water just like started pulling the net and swimming it closer to the ball, because we're like, we have to stop doing this somehow. But I don't think I ever remember being so tired in my life before.
Oh, and starving.
Oh yeah.
I'm really fascinated by the whole outwit thing, and you do a podcast now about how people sort of underestimated you, and I find that really fascinating. That you took all of these sort of I'm watching and I'm listening and I know how to play this, but I'm not going to let people know. So how did you did you know that going in? Like how did you decide what you're? Because I know you love the show. So you probably just wanted to be on the show because it's cool, but you also wanted to win. So how did you figure that out?
What was your MO?
I mean, of course, to win, for sure. And then I just knew from the experiences I had in life, right? I know we're talking over video right now, but I'm actually quite a petite woman. So I'm 5 feet tall. I have this little purple haircut. I'm an Asian woman. I I think I have a deep voice in my head, but when I hear my voice, I'm like, okay, I have a higher pitch voice. So I think I got really used to, for better, for worse, the experience of being in situations where I'd show up so prepared, I'd show up ready and knowing my stuff, and then having people assume that I was younger than I was, or less experienced than I was, or had less authority than I did. And so many situations where I'd be in business meetings and I would be there to run the meeting and people would think I was the intern and they thought I was just there to print out the agenda.
Go get some coffee, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Oh yeah, I've gotten so many coffee orders in my day and I've just stared back confused. So hopefully those people now, they can kind of laugh about it later. But I had always had this experience of people just thinking that I was not the person that I know that I am inside. And then when it comes to Survivor, what's so important, it's not just the surviving outside piece, it's not just the challenges piece, but it's really the mix of the social and strategic approach. And part of being good at that part of the game is understanding how people perceive you. So I thought, okay, even though it was a disadvantage to me in so much of my life that people underestimate me and think that I'm just this cute little girl, I'm going to use that at my advantage here. So I am going to navigate the game by downplaying the threat level that I have and downplaying the ability that I have, and then hopefully fly under the radar so then I can rise up at the correct time to come out in the end and win.
But didn't people figure that out? Like, didn't they go, okay, Erika managed to get ahead in this, so maybe there's something going on? Didn't they ever figure it out? Like, I just find it fascinating that you arrange for people to get voted out, and then you still want them to like you. So
yes, that's the hard part of the show, right? And there were definitely people who had me on their radar. If you watch the season, you'll see that people were talking about me the whole time, but I was just never the number one threat to get rid of. I'd always figure out a way to make sure I wasn't at the top or to figure out a way to stay. So, hey, yeah, maybe they figured it out, but they couldn't execute on it, and then they ended up voting for me in the end.
And they liked you.
Yes.
Wendy, in Survivor, one of the things they do is like you have 2 teams or 3 teams, and halfway through, or not even halfway through, you don't know, the teams blend. So your opponent will become your ally, and your ally will become your opponent. So it is really complex. I mean, it's full of almost military strategy, because you have to figure out, who you're going to be, who you can count on until the end when you stab them in the back. So,
yeah, but it sounds like you stabbed them in the back during the process too, and yet when they came on your team, they loved you. Or like when did people figure it out?
You were, I forget what the statistic was, but you were the person that had the most support as a winner, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not putting it well, but
yeah. So I think that as a woman winner, I'm tied for like the highest percentage of votes to win. But I don't know. I know there's lots of Survivor statisticians out there, so I'm sorry if I said the wrong stat. And I also voted for I voted correctly at every tribal council. So everybody I voted for got sent home. So all the people who voted for me to win, I also voted for 100% of them to go home.
Wow.
But it's such an interesting balancing act in that game where in order to get the votes from people, it's like everyone who's there, they're a fan of the show. They want to know that you play and that you have some type of agency when it comes to who goes home. So they want people who are voting them out, but then they also want people who in some ways validate their view of the game. So trying to pitch for yourself to win at the end is such an interesting balance of understanding how they see me, understanding how they see themselves, explaining to them the game that I played and explaining to them that I executed against the plan that I had, and that validates how they view themselves in their game, but then also changes their view of me. It's like such a weird balancing act. And I think that that's something that I developed, again, through being underestimated and being in lots of situations where I'm like, okay, this person that I'm talking to is not going to take me at face value. So I have to figure out how I can navigate getting what I want from this interaction. So yeah, all those weird, uncomfortable moments in my life leading up to it ended up paying off.
Wow, it's so interesting. Even the people who did the editing or the shooting, they didn't figure it out, right? Because from what I've read, from the first half of the show, you're like invisible. It's like they didn't figure out you were going to be the winner, and that Erika was going to win the big prize in the end.
Yeah, that's something that was definitely a topic of conversation around my win. And this is where I have to rely on those survivor statisticians who love to look at the visibility of different winners. So for whatever reason, there just tends to be less screen time for winners who are women or BIPOC. So unfortunately, I was just part of that statistic for whatever reason. So yeah, it was such a complicated experience after, because on one side, I had achieved this big goal that I had since I was a kid. And on the other side, then I'm dealing with people in the audience and fans online who are confused, and even at times myself who was confused watching it back, where I'm like, what? I knew I earned that, but then what went on? So it was such a complicated experience after because of that.
Huh.
Now they revealed you as the winner in situ on the island, but your family, how did that all happen? Because they would not have known, right?
Yeah, so I was the first season since season 1 where they announced the winner on the island. And I remember when we had finished pitching for ourselves at the final tribal council and everyone's going to vote, I'm thinking, okay, thank God this is over. In like 10 minutes, we're going to stop filming and I can just go eat a sandwich. So I was shocked when they told us that they were going to announce the votes right away and that I knew that I was the winner. And I just remember coming home, and it was that time during COVID where if you enter the country, you have to go to an airport hotel. So I'm sitting in this little hotel for 4 days and I'm trying to process what has happened to me. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to keep this a secret. I want my family and my friends to go on this journey. So I didn't tell anybody except for my therapist that I was the winner until they saw the episode air and they saw that I was the winner.
How long was that? How long was the lead time between the two?
So I came home in May and then my finale aired in December.
Holy smokes. And you won $1 million US.
Yes.
So you couldn't tell anybody about that. That's a whole other question. Like, what would you do if you won $1 million? Do we pay tax on it as Canadians?
That's a conversation I only have with my accountants and lawyers.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. But it is a substantial amount, and you kept it quiet, and then your family found out while watching the show.
Yeah, and also it's not like I got the million as soon as I won and as soon as filming ended. I had to wait until the show finished airing. So I just sat there for months thinking, oh, I'm about to be a millionaire.
So now you have the money. We'll call your accountant and find out exactly how much afterwards. But you're buying shoes or something, or you're being quasi-serious with some of it.
I bought like a nice pair of shoes, like a pair of shoes that I don't think I ever would buy in any other situation, like a nice bag. So I did treat myself to some things. I did do some traveling. Like I'm a big K-pop fan, so I treated my sister and sister-in-law to go see BTS in Las Vegas. So I've done some things like that. But otherwise, I know this sounds so boring to the listeners, but it's like it's invested and I'm thinking about being responsible.
It's not boring. It's not boring. It's good advice. So, which brings me to our next question. We've asked you all these questions about the physical requirements to get through the whole thing.
Yes.
And being hungry, very hungry all the time. But what have you taken from that in terms of, you went in there knowing yourself really well. You probably came out knowing yourself even better. So how have you applied that to what is now the rest of your life?
Yeah, I would say I have 2 big lessons that I got from it. So in terms of actually filming the show, realizing that I can do anything. There was a point during the show where I got sent to this place called Exile Island. It is as terrible as it sounds, where I got sent to an island by myself to live there for 2 days and 2 nights. It poured rain both nights. And my nightmare was being sent there one night and I had to do 2 nights. So I was terrified to go. And you can see it in the show. You could see it in my eyes. My friends and family had never seen me look that scared before in my life. So I was terrified. But then when I came out of it, I realized, okay, if I lived my nightmare, then I can do anything. So that was a huge change in terms of the filming of the show. And then after the show, I know, as I mentioned before, you get so much criticism. I think anybody who has some type of accomplishment, especially in reality TV, you're always going to have people critical of whether or not you deserved it. So I faced my share of criticism and online bullying. But then I realized, okay, if I can do this show and win the game and do everything right, and I still have people who are pissed off and think that I don't deserve it, then I'm never going to make everybody happy. So I may as well just do the things I want anyways, because even if I do something imperfect, I'll probably have somebody saying that I could do it better. And I think that those two lessons have really set me free from having these high expectations of myself. Because I think before I went into the show, I was like perfectionist, PR person, high expectations, have the 5-year plan. And then now I'm like, I can do the things that I enjoy. I can be passionate. I can start new projects, and I can trust that I have what it takes. And it really doesn't matter what anyone else has to say.
Is it that easy though? I wonder, because I just the whole thing about trolls. Like a friend of mine who's like old is thinking of, well, maybe I should raise my profile. Maybe I should do, but I'm afraid of, and this is like a confident person, a person who's accomplished so much. So do you not read the comments? Do you just ignore the trolls, or do you go, who cares what they think? I'm going to do what I'm doing.
I have a personal policy. I can just never go on Survivor Reddit ever again. And I'm sorry, I know that there are people on Survivor Reddit who are really supportive of me, so thank you so much. But I'm like, oh, that is just, if you want to walk into this like lion's den of people with varying opinions of you, some really good and some who think you're like the worst person ever, that's where you go. So I just don't go there anymore. But I try my best not to really think about them or not to seek them out. I don't look myself up on Twitter or anything. But the reality is you still get people who just reach out to you and go onto your channels and say something. So now, even though it still kind of stings a bit, now I kind of laugh when I see something. I think for one, it's obviously just a projection of however they're feeling about themselves, and I'm the target. And then also I'm like, I was on that show 3 years ago, so if I'm still bothering you so much today, I've still got it, I really made an impact, so I'm going to pat myself on the back for that one.
You know what, Erika? I mean, Wendy and I, we've had long careers behind us, and I can't, and have had our fair share, probably me more than you, Wendy, of people saying horrible things. So maybe we both have equally. And I can never really understand, why on earth do you hate me so much? And then I'm having the same reaction, thinking, who on earth would give you a hard time about anything? I mean,
yeah, why don't they take the time? Like, really? Unless there's some things that are serious, but so much of it is not serious at all.
It's also, I just feel you're right. You have to ultimately feel sorry for those people.
How do you both manage it, since you've had long careers in this?
Ignore it.
Give me some advice, please.
Don't engage. Don't engage. Never engage. I mean, on Reddit you don't have to, but yeah, don't never respond.
I just wrote a thing for the Globe and Mail, and it was a little bit controversial. I was basically saying that I don't listen to people like me anymore, and so we need a fix. And I don't mean the podcast. I mean, broadcast news.
Regular mainstream.
Yeah, and so there were a lot of people, and a lot of them were just like, well, you're an asshole and you make a big pension, and so fuck off.
The money thing is key too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well,
that applies.
But I had to hold back, saying I don't make a 6-figure pension, I make an 8-figure, so screw up. I didn't.
You're engaging.
I didn't. Yeah, well, and yet a lot of people, I worked at CBC for 1,000 years, and they said, do not engage, never engage. And so I didn't engage, and then people said all kinds of things, and so sometimes I think you do need to fight back. So it's really hard to know. So what's your advice, Mo?
I'll just give you a little anecdote. I said something once and somebody misconstrued it. Well, that happened a lot. And I got this scathing letter from this woman accusing me of anti-Semitism and just ludicrous. And I said, okay, I never said that. I will send you which you never do, but I said, I'll send you the clip that you're talking about, and you'll see I never said anything like that. And I did. And she wrote back and said, well, I'm never going to listen to you anyway.
So now you do a podcast, and it's about all of this, right? It's about like be brave, like stand for something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I talk to people who, in some ways, they've experienced being overlooked and underestimated. And part of the reason why I love it so much is it's, one, inspirational, and it's also so validating to different listeners. Like, there are certain topics that I think this is a really niche thing to talk about. Like, I interviewed Parween Mander, who is a financial analyst who specializes in how the first generation immigrant experience creates these obstacles for personal finance. And I'm like, I wonder if people are going to be interested in this because I'm just like a girl from a reality show. But then I ended up getting some really nice comments from people saying that they cried listening to it because they had never seen someone talk about their personal finance experience before. So it's so validating to be able to validate other people through the show.
So tell us about your podcast and any other projects. Like, what do you do with, and how old are you now? 32?
I'm 34.
She's 34. She's very old.
You've accomplished so much. You are, in this day and age, if you live in Toronto, you're relatively independently self-sufficient, even with $1 million. But so what's your next challenge? You're a person who likes one.
I do. So I love working on different creative projects where I can tell stories. So yes, one of them is my podcast, Happy to See Me. And then I also work as a keynote speaker. So I do some motivational keynote speeches for any events. And then I have had the fortunate opportunity to do more TV since Survivor. So I've been on Entertainment Tonight Canada as a correspondent. I was on The Traitors Canada, and unfortunately was the very first person eliminated because I guess they thought the Survivor winner was a big threat. And then I have some other longer term creative projects in the works. So hopefully you will hear me talk about those in due time as well.
I actually know somebody who was a boss who thought that he knew everything. And then he was interviewed on national radio and he said, yes, I'm happy to see me. And I'm like, yes. Because you said something really stupid. So I felt very good. But it's funny. I mean, I'm just thinking back to, you worked at Media Profile. So,
yes.
So I knew people like 1,000 years ago who started Media Profile. And I used to go, they still have Christmas parties. And I went to a Christmas party and someone wrote in a national newspaper that I danced like Elaine on Seinfeld. And so, I love to dance, but I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I got like tossed around the dance floor and everyone was like, oh, well, there's Wendy dancing. I never danced again. It's so stupid. It's
no,
I know, but it's so stupid. So all of these trolls, I mean, like, happy to see me. Just be happy to see me.
Exactly. Oh, and I'm so sorry. But also, I've been to many of those parties too. And it just, after a certain amount of time and a certain number of drinks and then a certain level of dancing, I think everyone kind of looks like Elaine. So I'm sorry they picked you out.
And you should never, ever make fun of how anybody dances because they won't dance again. Well,
that's exactly what happened. But that's not what should have happened.
Very few people are natural dancers. Erika, a question for you that you've had before. Would you do it again? Because Survivor has a tradition of bringing back winners.
Ooh, I feel like I will disappoint, but I don't want to say never. I just don't see myself saying yes to it anytime soon. And it's just because I got everything that I wanted out of the first time around. So I think I just couldn't imagine sitting there and being in those conditions and thinking, okay, why am I here? Like, I have already gotten all of my goals from the show. I already won. Like, I just don't see myself putting myself through that because there's nothing else I want from it. So who knows? Maybe if another interesting show comes up, maybe I'll say yes. Like I did say yes to The Traitors. So maybe you'll see me in another way.
Well, you accomplished so much.
Do you keep in touch with any of the people you met on Survivor?
I do. I have a few good friends from the show. So I'm still friends with Heather, who was famously my ally on the show. Still close with Evie, still close with Deshawn, and I still see Liana. So yes, you do definitely have some close friendships. But also, we are designed to not like each other as a group. So yeah, I think I have a good number of friends, considering I was in a group where we were designed to be enemies.
So you were the first person of color. You were the first Filipino, the first Canadian, the first everything. So are things better? Like, are they different? Like you learned at Media Profile about power dynamics, and then you went on and you outwitted people, and you, I hope, I mean, you learned some lessons, but I hope they learned some lessons too. So are things you're doing your podcast now, we're going to wrap up in a second, but are things getting better?
Like for me or for the show?
Well, for
the show.
Everybody.
Things are better for you. But I remember the first season, somebody saying, I hope they have a lot of sunscreen.
Yeah.
It was a bunch of pasty people. So, I think your season, there was a concerted effort to make sure that people of color were more than well represented. Well, I shouldn't say more. You can never be more than well represented. So I guess to Wendy's point, do you think that the show has evolved?
So I think that there are certain steps that are going forward, and I think that there are still certain areas where there can be improvement. So my season was the first season with the diversity mandate, which said that 50% of CBS unscripted casts need to be BIPOC, which was great. And what we've seen in terms of the winners since there have been myself, a Black woman, a queer Puerto Rican man, a Latina woman, and a white man who is an older man. So he's older than the usual Survivor winner. So we've seen diversity in the winners. At the same time, before I was on the show, the likelihood of an Asian woman making it past the merge, which is this milestone in the game, was very low. I think it was like less than 50%, but the Survivor statisticians can correct me. And since I've been on the show, I think that there has been an Asian woman who was the second person voted off almost every season since mine. So I think that people now think that if there's an Asian woman, all of a sudden they're going to be like Erika. So in seeing that is really unfortunate, and that really breaks my heart. So it's one of those things where I think there is stuff that's getting better and there is progress, but there's always so much more progress to go.
Well, you've made such a difference, Erika. So it's I'm really glad that you won, and I'm really glad that you're doing your podcast. And yeah, I don't know. Maureen, do you have any other questions? Because we've got.
Oh no, I mean I could talk to you forever, but congratulations on everything. You're a remarkable woman, a remarkable person, and we wish you luck with all your endeavors. So I don't think you're going to need it. I think you got everything you need.
I'll take all the luck I can get. Thank you so much to you both to having me today.
Happy to see me.
I'm happy to see me and you both.
Bye.
I really think that we should do Amazing Race.
Oh dear. Yeah, but she said not only are there not cocktails, which I could maybe live without, but my special pillow, I don't know, Marie.
Do you know what? No, the real thing is, with Amazing Race and certainly Survivor, is it's age too. I mean, the oldest person I think on Erika's season was 50. They rarely take people. It's just so physically demanding, and it's not just being agile. You starve. Not on Amazing Race. Now we're talking Survivor, but your caloric intake just plummets. So you're exhausted all the time, and it's not just your pillow. It's just all the things you kind of need to
well,
get.
And you have to
day.
Run around in your underwear. So I looked better when I was Erika's age, running around in my underwear.
There's that too. There's that too. That's also your cast. It may not seem fair, but your cast, certainly in Survivor, they tend to be beautiful people. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least, and I think it's really important for Erika and for a lot of people to like stretch the boundaries. Like, why does she have to be underestimated to win?
Because she's small and because she's an Asian woman. Yeah.
So exactly. She just took advantage of all of that, which is great. But it's kind of sad that she had to take advantage of that. So
and yet, having spent a half hour with her, I wouldn't underestimate her at all.
No,
I feel like
ever.
I'd be happy if she was the CEO of my company. She's got it all going on. So anyway.
Okay. Well, let's reapply. But I do want to ask them about the special pillow.
Women of Ill Repute was written and produced by Maureen Holloway and Wendy Mesley, with the help from the team at the Sound Off Media Company and producer Yet Belgraver.